One last bus at 6:10.
Call meeting order. Water Management District on August the 18th, regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Director Anderson,
Here.
Director Daniels,
Here.
Director Edwards,
Here.
Director Lindor,
Here.
Director Paul,
Here.
Vice Chair Oglesby,
Here.
and Chair Riley.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. We'll have a pledge of allegiance. Kate, how about you?
Sure thing. And it's here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. GM, are there any additions or corrections to the minute, to the agenda?
There were some minor corrections that went into your red folder. Actually, I think one of the changes made it into the packet.
Well, can we identify them just so we know what we're talking about? I think it's the minutes of the special meeting was,
There's a revised agenda with language amended under item 8.
okay.
And then the exhibit 1A, which are the minutes that are for adoption. Action language was added to the closed session. That's on page 1.
Okay, I got those.
And those were sent to you electronically as well in advance.
Okay. Okay, all right, then we'll proceed. We know these additions are made. Some came before the meeting. Maybe they all came before the meeting, but anyway, we need to catch up with all that. Okay, oral communications, I recognize somebody.
Yeah, hi, Tom Raleigh, speaking as a private citizen, Monterey resident. I want to thank you all. I got a legal notice after the meeting last month that gave some details on the refund on the water supply charge. I sort of chewed out my wife and said, where did this come from? And then we dug out the envelope and the return address was Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. So you guys mailed them out. Thank you very much.
And we not only mailed them, but they arrived, right?
Yeah.
Almost all of them. There were a few kickback.
What was the total number that went out about?
30, well,
31,000.
31,000.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense.
And any confusion created by the website that it refers you to was not confusion of our making. It was the plaintiff's attorneys who sponsor that website.
Well,
That we've
that's
had
underway.
reports of it being a little confusing to people.
Anyway, there was a long process to get to this point, and anyway, it's in process right now. Thanks. Any oral communications from anyone online?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, the board. We'll consider the consent calendar. There are 4 items. Member of the board have any comments or offer a motion?
I'd like to pull item number 2.
Okay, number 2.
Yes.
Okay, just might have heard that right. Okay, pull item number 2. Any other pulls from board members? Do we have a motion on 1, 3, and 4? That work?
That's what I move, Chair. 1, 3, and 4.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve consent calendar items 1, 3, and 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, thanks. I moved too fast for that anyway. Anyone opposed? No, okay, you guys have it. Item number 2, we'll go back to okay.
Yeah. We discussed this in the finance committee meeting, and it was my understanding that we were going to get a line item budget on this, and I didn't see it in there. I saw it broken out into the 3 days and how much each of those days would cost. But I was hoping for more of a what the money was being spent on, because now there's a total of 3 days the October 7th day wasn't discussed in the finance committee. And it, for 3 days, $94,000 just seems
Yeah.
a tad high for a budget for a 3-day event. I know there's a lot of expenses. I'd like to know what those expenses are.
Yeah, I'll let Mike pull up his, he does have a greater detailed budget, but I can tell you just as an example off the top. 30,000 for the tent and bathroom rental for the ribbon cutting. You know, bathrooms on the back of a
Yeah.
semi-trailer type thing and a large scale tent. So, but
Yeah, so catering, lunch, there's gonna be some props for some of the speakers, graphics, banners, printings, $3,000. Some video production, $5,000, photography, $1,000. So when you add up just the main event, it's roughly, yes, $50,000-$60,000. The public event is again rentals, bathrooms, the AV, security. So we're gonna have an open house, and so we need to have some additional security on hand, some food for that event, and promotion, and then the staff lunch. So the staff luncheon is basically a thank you to the staff that have helped guide this whole process, not only from Monterey One, but also the district staff, any other consultants that we have, you know, things like that. So yeah, it's a 3-day event, 94,000. Last time I talked with Monterey One, they've raised about 77,000 so far, and they have just a little bit more to go to get the full amount.
Excuse me, let me go back to Kate for.
I just want to know where the budget is. Was it, I see item number 2.
Yeah, so
I'm not seeing the budget.
yeah, they sent it to me, and I just kind of highlighted each individual. I can
It's in the
The-
cover memo, all we got to cover. memo.
yeah, I can forward this to the board and put it in the agenda.
The cover memo, which is what we had in the finance committee meeting. So
Yeah,
there's
and I just-
nothing additional.
I just put the additional amounts of each event. So the ribbon cutting was X amount. The staff lunch was, you know,
I see.
8,500.
Understood now.
But
the
now I was
question.
I can provide it more detail. That's why I just pulled that up.
Okay, no, that was not what we were hoping for. Got it.
Okay, Karen?
About how many people are we expecting for the ribbon cutting?
I think 150 is the private event on the Thursday, and then the public event will be open, you know, to the public. And I think they're going to take reservations for the public event.
So the ribbon cutting is invitation? I kind of agree with Director Lindor that I don't know, I was surprised by the cost for something like this.
For the smallest number of people.
Yeah.
Well, I was intimately involved in the last one, and it was about the same amount. So, you know, when you start renting things out and you don't do it yourself, you know, the cost can add up pretty quickly. So.
Well, we're a base for convention industry, for the convention industry. You know, the peninsula in
Mhm.
general. So these things are available, but they're also.
Yeah, and is this all happening here at the facility itself?
So the ribbon cutting will be at the treatment facility,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the open house and the staff lunch, and all be out in Marina.
Other questions here, and then over.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, then.
No, I just want to make sure that, I know we probably ain't paying, but are we invited to the ribbon cutting? I think we are, we're a big thing in this thing, and I thought, this is Director Edwards speaking, I thought $10,000 wasn't enough for what we paying to do for this peninsula. I thought it wasn't, but I heard the conversation at admin meeting, and I sort of like looked at things, and I sort of started agreeing. And I was gonna pull this item, and I appreciate you pulling it. Because at first I thought if 10,000 wasn't enough for the community, but then I thought about it a little bit after hearing y'all conversation. Now again, yeah, $10,000 is good enough, and we should help out with it. Because I think I checked with the GM and them, and maybe y'all could clear this up. We never gave anything for those other events that they've been having over there, and they put us into play. with that, even though we help.
That's
So,
true.
so correct me, so $10,000 is a drop in a bucket, but we're part of the community and we paying for those that can't show up and can't come and don't have the funds to be there and for the open house and all that. But, I appreciate y'all approving this when it comes up because, I'll make the motion now. And if I can get a second on it, we can move on it after everybody else have their conversation. Thank you.
There's been a motion, but we'll continue the dialogue here at the board level. You had more comments to make and then, I'm sorry.
Just a question. What if anything is expected of the board members? How are we expected to participate in any of this?
Yeah, you will have an opportunity, you'll be invited. I think the way we did it last time, didn't the board chair have an opportunity to speak? Yeah.
Did you say indicted or invited?
Invited. And we had quite a number of folks from the legislative delegation and our regulators, the State Water Board and so forth, who showed up previously. So the expectation is for more of the same, but we won't know until the list goes out.
Kate,
So, to be clear, this is an important milestone and it should be celebrated. My question is to raise this kind of money, and it looks like we have, who are some of the other folks that are contributing? Because we're a public agency, we're a water management district. And so I'm just looking to see who are the other types of entities that are giving, because I'm feeling like there's some more appropriate sponsors than us taking the public funds that we have and celebrating and having a celebration, participating, contributing to a celebration that's not even open to the public. So I just want to, I want to make sure that that staff appreciation happens, and I want to make sure that that open house happens and that ribbon cutting happens, because these are really important milestones. But I'm just curious who some of the other potential sponsors are, and just to see if maybe they're more appropriate than Monterey.
Yeah, so mainly it's at a lot of the engineering firms that help, construct, manage, design the facilities. Those are the main contributors, and we're on the kind of the smaller end of that.
So the private they're businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, this I'd think more of sponsorships coming from businesses. And so the next question would be what account would something like this come out of from the Water Management District?
Yeah, we have a pretty significant public outreach account. There's kind of two places for that. One is my office's outreach and the other is the district as a whole's outreach.
And what kind of outreach is going to happen as a result of this? Because if I can see it, if it means like the news is there and the media is there and it really gets the publicity it deserves, that's money well spent.
Yeah, they're going to do. They're part of trying to reach out to the media and the weekly, and have social media postings like that. So just relevant digital platforms that most of these events have, and obviously if you can get the news to come out and do a short story or have an elected give a little testimonial, that always helps.
Happy to anytime, but
Yeah,
just
I think the ribbon cutting for the base project, we had public radio do an in-depth interview. We had KSBW and KION out there. It hit all the print press, as little as there is these days.
So in terms of marketing, I think something like this is justified if it's understood as marketing, like we're publicizing this important milestone, and but sponsoring an event that the public doesn't get to go to is where I have the discomfort. It's not the amount, it's not the benefit, it's not the partnership that we're advertising. Those are all good things, and it's certainly not appreciating. It's not a problem with appreciating the staff who did all the work to make this happen. but that's where I was struggling.
Well, I think one of
So-
your points, Kate, is that real quick, is that the open house? You know, when we did the ribbon cutting the first time, that was kind of the component that we were missing. Speaking as a former employee, and I
Yeah.
think they kind of realized that, hey, we need to open this up to the public and let them see, you know, what exactly is transforming the water so that it becomes a robust part of the water supply. So
Yeah,
I think that's really a key part of this whole marketing outreach event schedule that you have.
And our industry is notorious for doing this kind of thing. I mean, it just happens that they celebrate their successes and, you know, you see a photo in the Aqua newsletter. That it's not a big public event.
The mayor?
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with all that in a sense, and I think Director Daniels hit on it. You know, you guys brought this to us as a sponsor, and I don't know if that's what the water, what is it, Monterey One Water put out for their private contractors. But maybe they shouldn't have asked us to sponsor. They should have just asked us for some marketing money,
Yeah.
or we just take some of that marketing money and help promote this because we're part of the partnership, as opposed to we're sponsoring something and then, like you said, public, no public, that's not an issue, but the sponsorship, right? Because we definitely can donate money to another public agency
Yeah.
for the good things that they're doing underneath what we're doing together, as opposed to being a sponsor, getting 2 tickets to the event, right? I'm not
and your
sure.
name on the screen.
Yeah, you put your name on the screen. And maybe you want to stay away from that and figure out how to take that same amount of money and just send it over there.
Yeah.
Because again, the 10,000, I think you get 2 tickets, but we're all going. Right. So that's what I'm saying. So the sponsorship just goes out the window because we're not there as sponsors if you get more than what the level provides for. And maybe it's just cleaner just to say in our outreach money, this is important to do this outreach with that level of money.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said, because it's an important point to make about the difference between, you know, those that are, you know, advocacy, helping to plan it, organize it, finance it, arrange for it, do all that stuff, as opposed to a sponsorship. And that's just, I like that distinction.
We can help put it on.
Well, I'm sure Paul Shudo will take your donation.
Sure.
I would like for a chair of this board to have an opportunity to say something.
Oh, at the event, yeah.
Oh, you meant right now.
That
George, are you having trouble speaking?
If you're gonna speak, that's gonna make me come out there.
I'll make a speech without predictions. Can't predict. Okay, no more comments on that. Let's ask a motion and a vote. Got a motion?
Look,
I'm sorry. Any public comments?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, and Tom, you're not coming forward? Okay, so we had a motion.
A point of order though.
Yes.
Chair, I think the motion was to support staff recommendation as the sponsorship. I thought we got away from sponsorship.
Yeah, I think we should kill that word.
But
going forward.
Well, I'm just saying, correct the motion in the minutes that we're gonna, you know, however we want to authorize the city, I mean, the general manager to participate in this 3-day event at a $10,000 contribution to put on the 3-day event.
Right under recommendation,
Point of order.
$10,000 contribution.
Contribution, yeah.
To support the outreach budget for the events.
very good.
Okay, very good. Okay with the motion maker?
oh yeah, I
Yeah,
accept that.
and I didn't-
Keep everybody happy.
I didn't hear a second, or I don't remember a second, but okay, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay? No nays. No abstentions. Okay, we've approved that. Let's go to. Okay, comments and general manager's report.
Yes,
Item
and
number 5.
while Sarah's teeing up the presentation. Just a reminder, many of you already know, but the Public Utilities Commission did issue a decision. The final decision is now on the street, and it mimics what they voted on last Thursday morning. Two fundamental pieces. They determined that water demand for the Monterey Peninsula will be 13,732 acre feet in the year 2050. And available supplies are currently at the 11,114 acre feet available level. So those are the PUC's official numbers.
What was the supply?
A supply, 11,114 acre feet of available supply. So that does indicate a supply deficit in later years that the community will have to grapple with if, in fact, any of these numbers prove out to be true.
Yes.
Through the chair, if I may, since you're on that subject, Mr. Laredo and the GM, is there anything we can do next to this? Or is it done? Is it over? And I know that saying you can sue anybody and it just about anything, but legally and GM, are we, anything this district can do? Because I know the public.
Do you want that?
Is listening.
Yeah, so our attorneys are already talking to some of the other attorneys of other interveners about application for a rehearing or a request for an amended decision or a petition for modification. So there are certain avenues. They don't feel that it rises to the level of a complaint. So it's unlikely that we would see a complaint. My concerns are that we don't want to backslide. We did, on the available supply side, achieve our goals apart from a typo that took on a life of its own. But there was recognition that aquifer storage and recovery is a good project with a long-term yield, and that the Pure Water Monterey project is not susceptible to drought in the way that it was portrayed. So those two projects were kind of elevated to what we contended all along should be their available acre feet per year, which is a good thing. The bad thing is that demand was still referenced as including legal lots of record and other things that are subject to debate. We, meaning Mike and I, and then in conjunction with our legal counsel later when we actually have a draft revision, but we've already started conversations with State Water Board based on these numbers. What do these numbers mean? And their goal is to not have to re-adjudicate the supply and demand stuff. And so if they can become comfortable with the numbers as they are and how they were derived, and still feel comfortable about where we stand in terms of trespass and lifting or modifying the cease and desist order, that's our goal here in the next couple of months.
Yes, Kate.
A couple things. One about the typo. In terms of that mistake, does it really matter? Because if we're proving the typo wrong by just providing the supply, it sort of counterbalances the typo, if that's.
Yeah, it affected the supply downward by 90 acre feet per year. So it doesn't change the broad takeaways of the proceeding. I think that the record is misrepresenting, because there is a statement that the ASR at 1,120 acre feet was, and I think they cited Office of the Public Advocate's Office and ourselves and somebody else. I was like, no, we never, that was not in our record. So Fran is currently contemplating a follow-up on that one, just in and of itself, that, if you're going to attribute facts to a witness, that
Yeah.
you better make the attribution correctly.
And then in regards to supply, That's the number that's important for either lifting or modifying the CDO, right?
Right, because that is what's deemed to be available today with the addition of the Pure Water Monterey expansion.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear you've initiated those conversations. That's great.
Yeah, initiated. So like, bring it home, baby.
Time
yeah,
has
we-
not been kind because we started this discussion with the state staff in January. And then we met in May, and then the PUC kicked this decision from May to June, June to July, July to August. So
Go ahead, Karen.
I don't know if Fran Farina is on, but I just want to thank her for the really excellent work she did on this case, including trying repeatedly to get that number corrected, even after all the comments were filed and ignored. And to add to your Dave Stoltz's response to Director Edwards' question about what can we do, the application for rehearing is like appealing the decision to the CPUC, and it's something that you have to do if you want to appeal to a court. Have to do that first. So, it's something to consider. Certainly there are errors to correct. They say only file application for a hearing if we made errors. Well, you did make errors. Quite a few, but that's one indisputable error, I think, that typo. And I also want to make a comment about one of the outrageous things that decision said is that in terms of the public comments, that is the comments made by members of the public who are not parties, said there were no relevant public comments. That we don't have to address any of them because there were none that were relevant. Out of what, more than 150, I think, public comments. I think that was that was an inexcusable way to handle that. So if we do decide to file application for a hearing, I would include that.
And just to make sure,
Alvin,
oh, excuse me.
We're gonna go to the mayor.
Sorry, Mayor.
When will we know, when will the board, the district board have opportunity to weigh in on the possibilities of appealing? Right? When will you know? So I'm not gonna say it's automatic, but what I don't want to do is us keep talking about the possibilities.
Yeah.
We need to know when he's gonna come back and give us an opportunity to say that makes sense to us. Do we know that?
So Fran in my office is taking lead on this, and she is deep into the research of deciding whether or not that would be a good idea. We'll probably bring it back to next board meeting in a closed session to brief the board and provide options.
And
Okay, Alvin.
yeah, I just want to make sure. Do the other parties that's in this have to make a decision that that we're gonna appeal? Can this board say we're gonna appeal and we don't have to count on the rest of them? Because I got a habit of saying no to them and then I expect them to say yes to me. But I don't want to get us in that situation where we got to count on other folks.
no, we can act on our own, but it would be stronger with other interveners.
Naturally, but if we got to make a decision, I don't want to have to go through what I had to do with the Coastal Commission.
Yeah.
And I know what I got to do. And I heard this community. I want to thank Public Water Now and all those that was involved in this every week making a speech up there. And I especially want to thank our board members for taking time to go up there to talk to each one of those commissioners that they could talk to. So I know we put a lot in this
And even Mark Eisenhart weighed in public comment.
okay, well, I know a lot of people have been talking about this and I want this district to continue on. If we can do something, I better see the money spent on that. Trying to do something and we probably get a no, but at least it's been spent and they know. So, thank you, Chair.
Well, we'll wait for Fran to get more research under her belt and bring back some information for us to consider. On that topic, let's move to the next topic here.
Yeah, so this is the regulatory compliance report. I'm going to keep it pretty short because we're two months away from the end of the water year. And there's been no rain and stream flow. We already told you how dismal it is. So I just want to touch on a couple of things, a couple of takeaways from this report. The important thing here is the Carmel River is at almost 2,700 acre feet, and the legal limit is 3,376. And what we saw was about 300 last month. So they'll end up pretty close to their water right. It's not going to be exact. They're not going to, you know, bring it in 1 acre foot below, but they'll at least be way better than they were 2 years ago, where they missed by a long shot. So that's a positive. And then you can see also that the Seaside Groundwater Basin is actually currently under their allocation. So they'll be making up a little ground on that over the next 2 months as well. On the next slide, these are the other water projects and rights. The important thing here is Cal-Am in the last 2 months took quite a bit of pure water Monterey water out of the ground. And so now they're at the 3,086 is exactly the amount of water that has been put in by the public agencies on delivery in the same water year. And they had been lagging about 300 acre feet. So they've caught back up there. And then finally, Sand City Desal, that 147 includes 3 months in a row of positive production. So, yeah. So that's a good sign too. And, you know, part of the, I won't say comedy, but some of the things that amuse me a little bit in the supply and demand decision, Sand City Desal was counted at 94 acre feet, because that's an old regulatory number that the state said, oh, you can build that plant, but 94 of it has to go against unlawful diversions that serve Seaside. And so Cal-Am will say, oh, we can only count on 94 acre feet. No, all the output from Sand City Desal goes into the distribution system and serves demand, customer demand. And so in their reporting to the State Water Board, you'll see a number that'll probably show 2 more months of outputs. It'll be about 180 acre feet. And that's what we've been saying all along is Sand City Desal is available at, you know, 175 to 225 acre feet a year. Count it. And so on. So you'll see on the next chart, there's also a column for El Paso. And you can see to date, Cal-Am's taken 74 acre feet of El Paso, 76 rather, acre feet of El Paso into their distribution system for delivery to customers. Cal-Am bills, Cal-Am meters, and the Public Utilities Commission decision counted 0 for El Paso. So these little sources of supply that I call other, they do add up and they're significant, and they got absolutely no credence in the decision. So what you do see from this report is that the total, that lower right-hand number, is still about 154 acre feet higher than last year. And so if we had an August and September the same as last year, then we would end up at about 9126 versus last year, which was under 9,000. So, you know, it's kind of in the same ballpark as what we've been seeing over the last few years. You know, the current running 5-year average of total water produced for the system is now 9,405. That's a 5-year average. So if we end up at just over 91 or just under 91, then we're still under that trailing average. So you're not going to see a big rebound of any nature this year. The remaining charts are rainfall and stream flow, which we don't really need to talk about right now, other than stream flow conditions are causing rescues. We're trying to get a great shot of a kelp, which is, you know, basically a adult-sized fish ready to return to the sea that we acclimated to salt water, and then once it was ready, released directly into the ocean. It's kind of a cool video. So once we get the editing done, that'll be up on our website. But they have been out doing rescues. We have no fish in the facility yet, but that's not going to stop Mike from taking Congressman Panetta's legislative assistant, who's in town, out to see the facility tomorrow. So. And with that, I want to turn to the next item under the GM report, and that's recognition of the CFO and his team for once again getting the Transparency Award from the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA. So kudos to you and your staff, and thank you for keeping us out there in the public transparency. And we have now changed outside auditors, so this will be the first year with the new outside auditor, but they are instrumental also in preparing the material that goes in for the GFOA award. So, and they also sent a certificate made out to one George Riley as sitting chair, and I did not include that in the packet, but if you really want the recognition, I will make that available for you.
Yeah, you better give it to him.
Well, I just want to compliment you and Michelle too, both on whatever it is. It's hard to get excited about some accounting principles and things. I mean, it's hard to have a public discussion that's got any emotional content to it. You know, it just seemed like it's all very objective and very sterile. And anyway, but I think Michelle, when you make your presentations and you respond to questions and so on, you bring a personality to the table as well, and that's very much appreciated. And this is another success that I think is very good for our district. But you're helping it, but we know who did it, and so we recognize you in particular. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then item 7, we have Stephanie Kister Campbell, I believe, who is available to present. Sarah, you're going to run the presentation though, and yeah.
That's okay.
And this is on the Summer Splash contest, which is concluded and had even better participation than last year, but I don't want to spoil the
All right,
presentation.
thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. All right, so the game board this year, this is the sixth year of the game board, and it was improved this year with a professional illustration done by Aldo Crusher. It depicts humans and animals enjoying a river setting, and it was modeled after the Carmel River. So you can see there's local plant and animal species represented. The theme this year was Let the River Flow, with educational videos focusing on global and local water issues. It featured 12 questions, such as what are 3 crucial functions of a river, and how is the Carmel River affected by drought? The game board ran in all the local papers, the Weekly, the Pinecone, Monterey Bay Parent, and on social media. And then the district and CalAm also put out email blasts inviting folks to play the game. So through the course of the month that the game was live, we had just over 3,000 people who visited the game board website. And of those, we had 478 who played the game to the end, which was 48 more than last year. I personally noticed on the entries, we got people were more engaged with the questions than previous games that had a little bit more elementary topics. We had a comment from a player who said, I really learned something in the process, so that's good news. We will reuse the game design for 1 or 2 or however many more years that it makes sense. So that investment will go forward. And then there were 25 winners. So they were all selected at random last week and were notified. And funny enough, Jeff Condit, formerly from next door, he actually played the game as research for his current position. And he won an iPad. So congrats to Jeff. And that's all I have. Any questions or comments?
So Jeff was a grant-funded stormwater coordinator. So he sat next door, but it wasn't really a M1W wastewater-oriented position. It was to manage the regional stormwater effort.
I just want to reinforce what was just reported, because I took the test from beginning to end, and it required you to think. You couldn't just kind of, multiple choice. You had to think. It made me think anyway. It was fun for that reason. Any other comments? Thank you very much. That was a
Thank you.
game and it was a good
Thanks, Steph.
presentation to the public and good participation too. We increased the value of the prizes this time around too.
Little bit.
We
I don't know.
increased the number, I think, for sure.
Yeah, the number's up. We had, I think, 2 washing machines previously. I don't know, Stephanie, if you can weigh back in, or the other Stephanie, it's,
Yeah, you guys had great feedback for us last year, told us to beef it up a little bit, so we increased the number of prizes from 20 to 25 and just kind of diversified the prizes a little bit. So just the budget just I think was about the same or just a little bit more this year.
Good. So it sounded like another success. I'd like to see that. All right, thank you very much. Well done. Going on with the agenda, we're at the council's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report is found on page 33 of your packet. I just wanted to highlight a couple aspects of it. Of the active cases, the first one, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District versus Cal-Am. This is the lawsuit embodying the public acquisition of the water system. Cal-Am's lead counsel has said that they intend to file a motion to stay proceedings in the Superior Court, but they have not yet done that. Discovery efforts are continuing. Regarding the LAFCO lawsuit, this is currently on appeal with the 6th District, and the district's briefs are to be filed by October 10th. The third case here, this is the City of Marina versus and the Water District versus the Coastal Commission in Cal-Am. As we know from last meeting, we did elect to move forward with the joint appeal on that matter.
So no briefing schedule? No?
We have not got a briefing schedule yet. Once we do, it'll make it in the packet for you. On the matters before the Public Utilities Commission, as we discussed for the amended water purchase agreement on August 14th, that decision of the phase 2 process was in fact adopted, providing the 11,114 acre feet as the annual water supply and the projected demand at 13,732. And we'll be sure to bring that back to the board for a more in-depth discussion about next options going forward. For the general rate case currently before the CPUC, a motion was filed by the Public Advocate's Office to remove the Administrative Law Judge Douglas Long, and that was granted on August 15th. The newly assigned ALJ Larag, L-A-R-A-G. A pre-hearing conference, which is going to be focusing on scoping, is tentatively set for August 29th. That was with the old judge. I believe the new judge that just came in just today stated that confirmed that date. So we have that pre-hearing conference on the 29th. The only other thing worth noting is on the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District versus the State Water Resource Control Board. This is that 2009 case. That matter has been dismissed, and so we anticipate seeing a demand for legal fees at some point coming. And that wraps up all new aspects of the litigation.
I have a couple of questions too. I'll take Karen.
For the next report, the next time we meet, could, regarding the rate case, could you please include the rate increases requested by Cal-Am?
Okay, I will be sure to put that in.
I have a question regarding item number 1, which is Cal-Am's intend to file a motion to stay. Is that intended to hold until the Apple Valley case is decided? Is that
That's correct. Yeah, they're just looking to hold all proceedings and keep the case in stagnant while the Apple Valley case is decided.
and we'll talk about the whole schedule on the acquisition under item 12. But they are still scheduled to file a motion for summary judgment dismissal.
Oh,
And we will simultaneously be filing a motion for summary adjudication, and that's coming up very soon. But we have a schedule in the item 12.
And we will have closed the session next meeting. And I'm not sure how many of these will be, anyway, that's to be determined.
We will likely have it, if anything, to talk about the phase two decision
Okay,
and next steps. Anything else that pops up, we will bolt into that closed session and have it properly agendized.
okay, let me just make sure I didn't have any other questions. Just in terms of the case with LAFCO, are we using contract counsel at all?
Yeah, so the LAFCO appeal, we have Shoot Mahali, who was our original attorney on that. And then Shoot Mahali is participating in the eminent domain proceeding to deal with any of these issues surrounding activation of latent powers, because that really is the fundamental LAFCO issue, and they've done most of the research in that area. So they're assisting special counsel as special counsel on the eminent domain.
Good, yeah, I think that's a good firm. Okay, any other questions or clarifications that we need? Okay, thank you for your report. It's been a good addition to the agenda, I think, in general, to have this deep report, but also highlighted it the way it is. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And I can tell the rest of the board agrees. Okay, so let's go to the next item, which is our report from board members on activities beyond this meeting, outside this meeting. I have one question though, I mean, besides the report, there is a conference in town, Special District Association, which is what, 2 weeks from now or 1 week or?
Next week.
Next week. I mean, I'm going. I don't know how many other board members expect to be going. Okay, 3 of us. I'll say, well,
And I think we've got 2 or 3 staff that are attending parts of it.
okay, yeah, okay, Kate.
I just want to say, I got to my schedule and I looked, and even though I had said I'd like to go, my schedule is packed that week. And so was there any ability to use that registration for somebody else?
Yes, we can reassign it likely to a staff person.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for understanding. I really did want to go, and it's like I didn't know when.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I hope to be there for a couple of days. Any comments from the board on this? What you've seen, what you attended, and what you want to report on? Okay.
No, just one quick one. Thank you for attending Seaside Basin
Oh,
Group Committee. You went to that meeting, I listened in to that meeting, it was good, healthy conversation. And I'm glad somebody from the district was there, because I looked at it on Zoom, so. It was a good meeting.
yeah, it was a committee meeting. It wasn't
Committee,
a full
well, that
meeting.
The ad
committee
hoc
meeting, yeah.
committee.
I was wondering where I was at.
Well,
Yeah, it was that committee meeting, but thank you.
Okay, well, okay, that's the end of item number 9. Number 10 is the strategic goals report. Dave was putting together an update.
Yeah, and I think the staff note is pretty self-descriptive, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things, maybe that need a little more explanation. So we'll wait for Sarah to get that up. And this is basically just a mid-year update. So, would have done it last month, but I didn't want to put Mike through that while I was playing grandpa.
Just 1 minute, please. It's Adobe's having these
I
reset.
have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Karen.
Yeah, I'd like, one of my questions is about under goal 2, expand public outreach. And you say it needs improvement, so I'd like to hear your thinking on that one. And related question is goal 4 is to increase public engagement. That's part of it, and so. it's
Yep.
related.
So on those 2, so in goal area 2, which is really the acquisition, I don't feel that we've and you know, this lands on staff here, that we've done a good enough job at keeping our public informed about progress or lack of progress. Which is why you'll find item 12 to kind of cover that territory. You know, I still get emails from members of the public who are very involved in the ballot initiative, wondering where are we? What's happened? You know, because it's been a while. And so trying to figure out, and this is a constant monthly conversation with our outreach people, is how can we make it better understood where we stand and what progress is being made. So that's that one. In the later item, there had been discussion about assembling a citizens advisory panel. That was something we talked about during the workshop. And I think that how inundated Nichelle and I became with just getting out from under the water supply charge with this whole program just kind of pushed that off. Now, Director Lindor was on our Ordinance 152 panel. I think most of the members who've been on that panel found it interesting if you have an interest in water issues. So the concept of having, you know, some direct outreach to people who take an interest in water is still a good idea. It's just we've made no progress on it.
What if we had a, say, quarterly town hall with an update?
Yeah, we can do that. We did talk about town halls. The other thing that we have done in the past, but not recently, is open house, where we set up easels and posters of the different things we do, and people can come through and you know, directly ask staff kind of one-on-one what we're up to. And so all of those are good. How'd you end up, Sarah?
Getting there.
Okay.
I had
Yeah.
one of my physicians and his staff, they're very interested in the water issue. They're always talking to me about it. And I had one of our 2024
Annual report?
annual report. And they were just amazed. Oh, that's great. Look at all that stuff. You know, I didn't know anything about this. I said, you know, this went out with the weekly, and was it with the pine cone? Where else?
We didn't make the pine cone this year, but we did the weekly, and then we did our email blast, which is, you know, 23,000.
And they said, oh, well, we pick up the weekly all the time, but we didn't see it. And I don't know how effective that is being.
I
Because
can
it's
get you a
really-
box of them for the backseat of your car, though, if you want to, you know, every time you get the chance.
He asked me for some, so I stuck about a dozen or 15 under the door to his office. He's gonna put them out
Great.
on, instead of magazines, or with the magazines at the central table, but they were very interested and just felt like they hadn't had an opportunity to get to know what's going on. So I thought that was,
Yeah, I think the last two annual
Important.
reports that we did, and this is where Wellman can be commended, became very nice pieces that you wanted to pick up and look at. And the takeaway was they're into a lot of different things. And I thought they were very effective, but the key is getting them in somebody's hands.
and
Yeah.
that could be done, you know, if we had some kind of outreach events, whether it's a forum.
Yeah.
Somewhere it's wherever it is, then people can pick them up.
Maybe a
People who are
booth at the
interested.
farmers markets that are around town.
Yeah, and I think, so we did discuss when we do our tents at all the, you know, like West End celebration and so forth. And we decided, same thing we talked about, a board member having access. When we're joint with Cal-Am, we want to keep our advocacy to a minimum, but when we're by ourselves, we can just crank it up to whatever level we choose to. But when we talked about it, we had already gone past the two events that we do by ourselves, and everything left was joint with Cal-Am. But it'd be worth going back and looking at, because we're at the fairgrounds, we're at West End Celebration, we're at Good Old Days, those kind of things. And, you know, people pick stuff up. I don't want to hear from the Pacific Grove Public Works people, though, that all of our annual reports were the number one leave behind on the street, but no, it would never happen.
Mayor, on the comments here?
Yeah, I just want to pick up that thread that was out there is, I forgot what we settled on for that committee's name, but we took a lot of time at
Yeah.
that workshop to come up with the idea for that committee. And so for me to hear that, well, we just let go of one and we're a little too busy to pick up another one, that was a strategic goal to have a committee because it's going to serve several different purposes. And we just talked about outreach. We just talked about wanting to have people man these tables at these events. We just talked about how we want people in the community to know what's going on. Well, that was the idea of that committee. And so, I would like for it to come to fruition, but sitting here saying that was not important after we said that was one of the main goals. And then we're asking ourselves why people are not talking about it. They don't know what's going on in the community because it's left to us or some annual report or tabling at an event 3 times a year. Now, I don't know how much work needs to go into committee, day to day, but it was about a group of people that knew what was going on and that's out there telling their neighbors because they're going to meetings, they're understanding, and they volunteer to take on some of that work. And then again, I thought it had 2 or 3 different other benefits that we talked about.
Yeah, I want to just piggyback on that comment too. I think big things are going to be happening in the next few months. And it's going to put us on the map, I think, for water supply in general in ways as there hasn't been before. We need to find ways to take advantage of that. If that's a PR, blast, I mean, a series of blasts and so on. And I think at some point we need to consider breaking away from Cal-Am and not having joint sponsorship of all of our PR ads because we have a different agenda than they do. And particularly when we've got good things to say when pure water expansion comes online. And I think the allocations are out, the cities have it, the housing goals are in place in the community and so on. And so the question about whether we have money for affordable housing or development in general or bounce back or whatever they want to call it, whoever they are, doesn't matter. I mean, I don't want to talk to Tom only, but the point is the entire community is ready to move forward and we have the means to allow to help the community move forward. And that's what our goal is. And I think we should be a little more focused on our PR and the outcome that we want from the PR. And just to have a discussion along those lines, that's all.
Yep. So a couple of things. We didn't say it's not important. It is important. And then also we still maintain our own series of branding ads and control, which Stephanie Locke, who's on and listening, can tell you that every time we run something that looks like it's conservation messaging, we get a call from Cal-Am saying, hey, I thought we have an agreement to do all conservation messaging jointly. So we have to kind of measure what we're doing. They've learned to understand that we are our own entity and we do our own branding and messaging. But there's some playing field discussions about what has to be joint and what can
Well,
be
just
individual.
just in the course of being transparent,
Yeah.
we're a teammate with Monterey One Water, so there's a 2 joint, we could do if whatever it is, and I didn't know about this letter we got from City of Seaside, but whatever happens with Marina Coast, there's another joint thing that if whatever happens there, we might be able to do that. We don't always need Cal-Am as a partner. That's my point.
Yep.
Did you have your hand up or somebody did that? Saw a motion. Okay.
A question about this, what's the obligation to do certain things with Cal-Am that we're currently doing? Is it just that that's the way it's been done for a long time, or is there?
No, well, Stephanie's on. Do you want to weigh in on the conservation, the joint?
Just that if we want to change that and do on our own, as Chair is suggesting, is there any reason why we can't say to Cal-Am, we want to do X, Y, or Z independently?
Yeah. Stephanie, what is our agreement?
So Karen, I can barely hear you, by the way. We don't actually have a contractual agreement on this at this point. Many years ago, when CalAm was collecting the conservation fees through the ratepayers for the district, we did have agreements on sharing stuff. And I think we operate as, and we have a common interest in conservation and efficiency. And so we've always just been very supportive of each other. And so I think that there is no reason that we could not do our own thing. But we do have a lot of programs that we do. And I mean, we're both, CalAm's got a great email list that with their customers, we have a great email list. And so I think we complement each other and we're all working for the same goal as far as water efficiency.
Thank you for that, Stephanie.
Mayor?
I'm not sure we have the same goals. And I'm just picking up the thread, right? Not what she said, but what I'm getting to at a certain point, we're if we're partners with them, we want to do a lot of good things with them. But if there's an area that is holding us back from what we're trying to do, then I don't see how you keep planning that partnership. And so I'm just asking the board to think about that. If, it can't be, well, I mean, unless you guys think we actually do share the exact same goals as CalAm as it relates to efficiency and effectiveness and conservation.
Really
If
only,
that- hold
only
on.
there,
Huh?
only there right now.
But but if it's holding us back from advocating for the things that we want for our ratepayers, then I don't know how you keep playing on that same team.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just, we're getting to a point where it's stopping us from fully throating our advocacy. But I just, yeah, that was it. I understand it. I thought we may have had a contract with them. That was my question is what's holding us back from doing our own thing, except the agreement. But maybe that's something the board needs to just think through. Because at a certain point, it's going to be things we have to disconnect with them about. And that's what I want to say. If our conservation and sharing lists on both sides, right, is getting to the point where we're finding out, well, that's fine, but is CalAm really living up to the so-called benefits from the conservation? We're conserving, but they're using that to their benefit to maximize returns, which we all understand that. And we're just using it to say, ratepayers conserve.
Yeah.
And so I just throw it out there. It's a longer conversation, but I thought it was good questions and comments.
Well, let's not feel like we can solve a particular thing today. I think the next public outreach committee ought to deal with this a little more.
Yeah,
But I think just coming back to the mayor's point, if there's a category, if there's a subject matter for a PR pitch, and if it's conservation, and then we're in joint agreement with what that is, that's one thing. But if it's something else, then we ought to decide, and because of the subject matter of the pitch, the PR effort, then we ought to just have that decision about whether we go jointly or we could pick another partner to go with too, because that would be a different shared goal.
Yep.
Okay.
So I did just want to address the highlights that I put up here just to give you a sense of how things are going. So in goal area 1, which is water supply, we're busy there. We're the 3 that I've highlighted, the lifting of the cease and desist order, the pure water expansion project. And then we have what's called WUI, which is water use efficiency objectives, which is a very highly complex series of reporting that our state legislature put into place as part of conservation as a California way of life. And we have some reporting requirements that we now as a wholesaler are stepping into. And then CalAm has reporting requirements that we're trying our darndest to figure out if the data that they're utilizing is accurate. And so we've been kind of immersing ourselves in different aspects of this new database driven system up at the state. And we have a lot of work on our desk on these areas. So that's a good example.
Okay,
Through the
a
chair.
question, Karen?
Is leakage one of the pieces of this?
There's a water loss efficiency reporting requirement, and they've gravitated to the American Water Works standard loss reporting. But you look at some of the data that's in there, and Mike, for example, found losses in the Hidden Hills, Ambler Park. Yeah, losses in Ambler Park, which is not part of ours, but it's one of the central satellites. The number in the database makes no sense. It's the percentage would be out of this world.
Yeah, they listed 1,000 acre feet of water loss from that little system. And it was like, that's not even realistic.
Hmm.
It was like, 2 acre feet per home per day for the year.
Hmm.
So, you just making sure that you
Yeah.
clean up that information and then you report that to the state. And a lot of times those numbers that they report get pulled into other areas. And so then it kind of falls downhill into being misrepresented in other reports.
And we
See, it seems like getting accurate data is rather important
well,
for a lot of reasons. I don't know what we do to get it, but putting it out there.
Well, and so just as another example, in the residential demand side, they assigned a certain amount of square footage, which we translated to acreage of irrigable landscape area. And it's a huge number. What would become, it's like over 2,000 acres. And we're sitting there going, how would somebody from the state know which ones are on wells, which ones are not, which ones are recycled water, which ones are not? And so the next component of that is the CII, commercial, industrial, and institutional. Well, if they scope a golf course from the sky and say, oh, it's in the service area, are they going to include that one when we only have 2 golf courses that even pull any potable water from the utility? And so even though it's not our reporting today, it will be when we acquire Cal-Am, but we want to make sure it's done correctly, because what they're doing at the state is saying, here's the data we've come up with at the state, either in Department of Water Resources or in the State Water Board. And it's up to the water retailer to clean this up, and then we'll adopt it at the state. And we're over here saying, we know more about certain things. We wrote the model water efficient landscape ordinance on behalf of the jurisdictions. We wrote the conservation and water shortage contingency plan that's Cal-Am's tariff 14.1.1. So we have expertise, and most of the feedback we've gotten is, oh, well, you're not the water utility. They need to vet this data. And then we read something in a rate case where on the commercial landscape side, they're making an effort to look at Sacramento and what other
Ventura
County, with no plan to apply any of their methodologies to the Monterey area. And so we're trying to piece this all together, get through the door so that we can see it before it becomes memorialized and wrong. And so it's an effort. Let's just put it that way. But these are the examples of things that we're doing, that we're spending time on. On the goal area 2, I just wanted to highlight that you'll see when we talk about item 12, it's the old, lead a horse to water. You can't make the judge do anything faster. And that schedule, and now the Supreme Court review, pushes out the 3rd bullet point, which are all the detailed things. And now we're concerned that a new rate case application is filed, and those may be the rates that we're looking at, telling the judge that we can do better than, instead of the last rate case that just got done. So time is kind of our enemy for having to repeat things. And then a little further down, we talked about the citizens panel. And Sarah, go ahead to the next page. Finance and Administration Committee has seen a draft of some reserve policy, so we're making progress there. We already talked about the GFOA award. We did get our CSDA transparency certificate. CSDA is a conference that you're going to. They're the ones that offer the transparency certificate. And then we've made pretty good progress with our staff identifying what mitigations we do that are required by either law, by permit, or regulatorily. But we haven't translated that yet into here's how we can change the mitigation program, which, as we talked about at strategic planning, you as a board have to say, are there change conditions? Are CalAM's withdrawals now still the mitigatable environmental impact that we decided they were back in 1990? And if not, if we want to continue with this program, what are the findings and reasoning behind it? So we're getting closer to that, but we really need action on that. I would say, hopefully by the end of this year. I know we've got a meeting set with staff in September to talk about where we're at, but we can't keep doing everything we do and say, oh, it's because of the withdrawals from the river. It's other reasons, and you need to know what those other reasons are. So those were just samples or examples of things that move sometimes under our own discretion or not. So.
So another question, comment?
Yeah, about back to the water losses for just
Oh, yeah.
just a moment. It occurred to me there might be some useful information in the rate case materials possibly. So another request to council for the rate case that the next report, could we try to find out whether, I know it's a massive filing, it's huge, but if it's possible to see if there's any useful information about water losses in the system to let us know.
Yeah, I think water losses are part of the MDRs, the minimum data requirements. So I think they've gotten pretty good about consistently filing that. What we found interesting 2 rate cases ago is the number that they testified to was not repeatable. In other words, we know what their production is and we know what their consumption is. And one would think that the difference between one and the other would be non-revenue water. And we couldn't get the 2 to foot. And so it's, you're back to this issue of, okay, as they've adopted the American Water Works standard and are using the dashboard from American Water Works, if I see that in 2 rate cases in a row, now we'll know that, okay, we see it in 2 different places or filing the same thing in 2 different places. That's always a plus, but we're just seeing that for the first time now.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
Okay, yeah, this friend wants to add something from staff.
In response to Director Paul, she is correct that the general rate case does have that information. My recollection is that it's somewhat formulaic. In other words, they'll put in a figure and then they'll do a multiplication and a division and they come up with an answer, which is why it probably differs from the actual production numbers we have. The other component, which is troubling, is if they're doing it for the entire central satellite district, whether it's Hidden Hills or Ambler, those loss rates get attributed to all of us, even though the Monterey service area has spent significantly to reduce the leakage that we have, which is why CalAV loves to report that in our area, it's something like 3%. And that is factually accurate. So I think there's a combination of factors that would need to be addressed to give you a more comprehensive answer, but it will be part of the general rate case and our discovery that we will be doing. So I hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you, friend.
And it's also unclear whether, so let's take an event like the main break that went into Lake El Estero and then ultimately out to the ocean last November. So we did calculation based on the lake levels where it went from and to, And it was about 20 acre feet of losses in one main break, 20 acre feet. I don't believe that's going to find its way into the loss calculation, because if you count it and estimate it and give it a name, then it doesn't always show up in the loss calculation. But we know it was a loss. And it's in there. It's, I'm saying demand is up 154 acre feet. Well, 20 of it's was in Lake El Acero and out to the ocean. So,
Well, as Fred suggests, maybe Discovery can help clarify.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave, for doing this review for us. It just reminds us too, as we proceed, that we do have goals and objectives, and we do have them written down, and there are ways to make progress or identify where we are on those. And I think it's good to have a little back and forth on that, because as we rethink or get more focused on different aspects of what we're doing, then you need to sort it out. But
yeah.
We can raise the questions and make the comments.
So,
Okay, yes, Alvin.
thank you, Chair. General Manager, when are you planning on having our next planning session? Because something was brought up in here tonight on this item that I sort of like been waiting for, and I didn't bring it up, but I see other people out there bringing these things up. And that is like working with Cal-Am.
Mhm.
We need to discuss that, and we need to do it sooner than later. So I hate for us to get into next year. We need to make a decision on how we're gonna do, and we don't wait until March when it's something we should be doing, January, or I love to do it in December, but the new chair will be on, and I know he
Yeah.
like the plan, so.
Well, I think we rescheduled the Public Outreach Committee meeting to September 29th, where we can talk about the citizens panel, the co-branding, and some of those specific items that we talked about. Some of the more geopolitical things that you might be thinking of, we can schedule some time offline to talk about, because I think we've already pretty much broken from coordinating a lot of things with Cal-Am because of the lawsuit.
Well, we need to say it publicly like we're doing now, bring it up, and I appreciate all the directors bringing that up, because we need to, and the chair, we need to discuss it, and I know we can't do it only in public, but it needs to be discussed and brought out.
Okay, well, thank you, board members, and also thank you, Dave, for the report. Let's go to the next item.
So the next item is a discussion item. Last time you saw this, it was an action item. So all we're looking for is general direction. A question was raised primarily by Director Daniels, and then Director Shirley in the ad hoc committee raised a similar question, which is, if Marina Coast Water District wants to store water, where's this water coming from? And, the answer is pretty well expected. It's any general source that Marina Coast says they have legal right to. And I've got a couple graphics I want to show you as an example. It's not the answer to everything, but they could be specific. They could say, we've restarted our desal plant and we're only going to deliver, an amount up to the production of the desal plant. That's not really what staff at Marina Coast Water District has in mind. They have in mind what I think would be more an appropriate way to think of it is, by producing water that they believe they have a right to, then it becomes recognized. And once you recognize the water, then you can store it. Because if you don't produce the water and it just stays in the ground, with the passage of time, it just stayed in the ground. And so you didn't put a number on it. And so the concept is, they have an eventual obligation to serve sites in Delray Oaks, Seaside, and Monterey. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. match the storage of water to just those jurisdictions. But the concept is, well, let me just give you an example of the concept. So this is Marina, and the recently annexed spheres of influence. And so you can kind of, well, let's see, as we look here, so the easternmost point on the right is basically East Garrison. So you can see some roadways, little grid work for those lots on the east end of the triangle. And Sarah, if you would scroll down a little bit, you see a red line where there's not a whole lot of yellow, and that's because they're beyond their current distribution network, which is the yellow pipes in the ground. But that's their pipe down General Jim Moore Boulevard, and you can see it goes all the way to the end of South Boundary Road. So that's kind of how close in proximity they are. They pass right by the ASR facilities, which are back up by you can see eucalyptus is named on the map coming off of General Jim Moore Boulevard. But the idea is that in the very light blue, those are municipal wells. And so well number 30 and well number 31 are the two light blue dots right above that East Garrison area where I pointed out on the right side of their distribution system. And these are two municipal service wells that are in the 400 acre foot aquifer. Next slide, Sarah.
Which two did you say?
It's wells number 30 and 31. And then here's the 400 foot aquifer seawater intrusion map. And down at the bottom, you see the little red. That's the approximate location of those wells 30 and 31. So here they have a couple of municipal wells that are not in the inundated aquifer that can produce their municipal water that they believe they have a right to, that I'm not going to argue with them on whether they do or they don't. And then the next slide, if they don't produce the water, I should have made a little red circle again, but if you look at the dark gray area is urbanized. And so the city of Marina, Central Marina is kind of like right under the label. And then heading down Reservation Road, you see just a little red half circle. That's, again, roughly the location of wells 30 and 31. And the blue lines are the flow. So over time, if you believe the theory that every year seasonal rains and flow of the Salinas River replenish the aquifer in the area of those wells, if you don't take the water, there's a natural flow away from those wells down into cone of depression from overdraft into the seawater intruded area to the north. And so their thinking is, in this example, well, if I leave it in the ground, it's going to flow away from me. And if I take it out of the ground when I can take it and store it, then I've recognized it, I've given it an amount, and now we have an account. And so call it 100 acre feet that year are protected. And that's 100 acre feet that I didn't leave in the ground that flowed away to the depression in the north. That's a theory of just any municipal water available to them, as opposed to identifying a specific source like a restarted project. So that's how their thinking is working on this. Again, from our standpoint, you saw that there was a letter today that City of Seaside says, "Me too." I don't think we would need to stop talking to Marina Coast Water District to resolve working with the City of Seaside. Their issues are going to be a little bit different, though. They mentioned stormwater and some other things. We can't inject stormwater. We can only inject treated water. So it's unclear how some of the requests by the City of Seaside could be made to work. But there's nothing wrong with looking at what their requests are and saying, well, how would this affect an agreement with Marina Coast also? And Marina Coast may have some response to that letter as well. But I think that either we want to try to craft something and then look at it later, or we just don't want to try. And that's all I'm looking for is direction from the board to either go ahead and start drafting something that we're not committed to until we see what the parties can agree to. And then come back with that in several months or not.
Yeah, my understanding is, the letter from Seaside, is submitted on behalf of them as a producer of water
Yep.
and their, land use plans as a user of water. So they're covering both sides of the equation, in their letter. What we're talking about with Marina Coast is more their water, can it be stored and then return to them at some point. And that's as a producer but not a user. They
And
do provide water.
And they are beginning to discover that they have fewer customers for the amount of pure water Monterey water that's currently being generated. So the natural next step is going to be Marina Coast coming to Monterey One Water saying, hey, do you have any excess capacity in your injection wells for pure water? But that's, as you saw, I had one sentence in there that says that's not what we're talking about here right now.
Well, yeah, Kate.
So, thank you, Chair. Pure Water Monterey water and desalinated water, if they got the desalination plant back up and running, would make a lot more sense to me as water to be stored. I'm still struggling with the idea that we would be taking water out of, despite the theory that you just described, is the 400 the deep aquifer?
No, the
Okay.
deep aquifer is around 900.
So it's a in-between aquifer that's seawater intruded at a different part of the basin.
Correct.
And so we would be taking it out of one aquifer and moving it into another. Is there any threat that Marina would lose their allocation? I don't understand like that part of the.
No. Well, the allocation doesn't exist if you don't take it. So in other words, they can produce a certain amount of water every year. They have rights that were conferred upon them by FORA and through the whole process, and they reallocated specifically to Monterey. Monterey, I believe, has 65 acre feet, and Seaside has some. But for example, Campus Town has to be phase 1 and phase 2 because there's not designated water yet for phase 2, which you could detect in the Seaside letter too. That's like, hey, make sure you prioritize the developments that have been committed to. So I think in their mind, and let's just take South Boundary Road and Monterey, for example, right now. If anything had happened out there, they would already be delivering water to the city of Monterey for old Fort Ord land within that 65 acre feet per year. But if they now develop water or produce water, a portion of that 65 acre feet, now they've designated it and they've stored it instead of delivered it to a customer. So now it's sitting in the ground. If they didn't produce it and just left it in the ground up by the municipal wells, it's not on account with anybody. It doesn't carry over year to year.
But they have it. They have that water. That is their water. It's been allocated to them. That's what we hear from Marina Coast all the time. Like that's their water and it's
Right.
allocated.
But there are others out there who say, just because the Army said you can have this much water doesn't mean it was scientifically proven to be wet water. And I'm saying that's not our argument here.
So if that's the case, then the second question I have is there an ecological benefit to keeping it in the ground? Because that's the part that I'm struggling with, that we're gonna, well, again, if this were the desal was up and running, and that makes perfect sense to me. We're taking water that's being produced. We're in this is all the Monterey sub-basin. The Seaside Basin is separate because it's adjudicated. Is that accurate? Or is it the sub-basin?
So the piece that Seaside Basin overlies, because it was adjudicated, it's removed from Sigma. I mean, they still have
That-
Sigma reporting criteria,
Understand, but I just,
but the rest of it has not been adjudicated, but it is subject to Sigma.
so everything though on this map though, it is Monterey Subbasin.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
would be, we would be taking water or allowing for facilitating agreement to take water out of one basin and put it into another. And I'm trying to wrap my head around the reason and what benefit it would have. And does that benefit outweigh what it appears to be something that would not be beneficial to the environment, right?
Right. So, if we assume that, and this is a big assumption, that Marina Coast Water District is also the GSA for the Monterey Subbasin, that they would be weighing those points, because if you're taking water from a series of wells that aren't seawater intruded and you pump the heck out of them and you create a bigger cone of depression, environmentally, you might be exacerbating the problem, pulling.
Yeah,
the
more
closer
salt
to
water
you.
toward
Right.
the Salinas.
I don't have anything that says you are or you're not, but conceptually it makes sense that it could happen. So that would be a potential environmental offset to the water business positive that they're trying to get at, which is I can take 40 acre feet this year without exacerbating the environmental issues. Now I've named it and put that 40 acre feet in an account and save it for a future year.
I understand delivering to Monterey and those spots, but looking at the map, I mean, it seems like the pipeline already runs, these were pipelines, right? The distribution system. So
Yeah.
it already runs down General Jim Moore Boulevard. And so basically what we would be facilitating is whether you take it when you actually need it or you put it closer. And I guess would it go up these blue? Where would it go in it? What's the different direction it would go? Be distributing it?
Well, it would only be distributed once there's a project. I mean, you need an end user.
So don't we or Cal-Am, the Monterey Peninsula, so the Seaside Basin does Marina take water out of the Seaside Basin?
No. So they have delivery obligation to Delray Oaks piece of Old Fora, Monterey's piece, and obviously Seaside's piece, all of which are outside the Cal-Am service territory.
Yeah.
So they've begun the work of laying the big diameter pipe. So there's as I said, pipeline all the way down to South Boundary Road. But until they actually have a development that comes in for a plan, and that's how they're going to end up charging off the distribution system too. It'll be connection fees or some sort of buy-in from the development. Then they'll run pipe up South Boundary Road to the Delray Oaks piece and the Monterey piece. But yeah, it goes back to really all they're doing is front running a future delivery obligation and putting it in the water bank. That's their thought. And at the ad hoc committee meeting that you attended, it's clear that not all the Marina Coast staff fully understand the hydrology, because somebody made a statement of, well, yeah, you could put it in and it'll start flowing its way back to the basin in Marina. And that's not, it's just not the way it works right now.
So the last thing I'll say is the part that jumped out, I just read this while I was sitting here, but the fact that it sounded to me the part that was coming from Seaside that applies to this versus a Me Too letter is that they seem to be saying, look, if you have enough water to store it, you need to prioritize the pending projects that we have first that we've been asking for water for.
Yeah, I think that's probably more a message to Marina Coast Water District than to us. But,
Yeah, no,
Uh,
definitely it's not to us.
yeah. But everything that's in there that's new and different, we would kind of lay at the table when talking to Marina Coast and say, is this a deal breaker or can you live with this or what have you?
Mayor?
Thank you. Before I forget, I think the letter came to this board. The letter was to you guys. Right? Why are we talking about accepting or planning with Marina Coast about accepting water when they're telling jurisdictions, particularly City of Seaside, we don't have water to serve your projects that are on the books. So this is not no thing out in the open where, hey, if they get a project, well, then we'll deliver water.
Oh, I didn't know. I understand.
Right, so it's, I'm not sure what they're saying in Marina, but for us to be here talking about, we're taking water, put it in the, the Seaside Basin. And then I think part of the agreement that we're stating here is something about, parties will have the right to purchase water from each other. We're purchasing water to do what? Send it back to Fort Ord?
Yeah, and
No, I'm that's rhetorical question, right? And so that's the point. If they had an agreement, if they say they have the water, they should be able to sign agreements with the land use jurisdictions, which I represent a couple out there. Delray Oaks, Monterey, CSUMB, whoever has land out there, right? If they have the water, then they should be able to sign some agreements stating that those parties will get the water when they need it. And then, if you have excess water, well, then I guess send it over to the Seaside Basin. But to jump over and send water outside and we accept it and just say, well, we got clean hands because we had authority to accept it. But what are you doing, right? What are you accepting it for, other than to put it in the basin to stave off maybe some seawater intrusion at the Seaside Basin? That makes sense. But if that water doesn't come back to serve the projects that are on the former Fort Ord, then the excuse is we don't have water to serve them. And if I'm struggling right now because they have not committed to give us water for phase 2 or the full build out of Campus Town, which is on our books. And then next door, which is Main Gate. I mean, so if they want to store it, that's fine. But we as a body should be saying, are you serving your customers over there? And I think that's really what we should be talking about. Not trying to leave it up to Marina Coast to say, hey, they have the water. Well, if they have the water, then they should have agreements to serve all the projects that are on the books right now, and full build out. Because if that's true, then store the water over here in the basin. But I don't know how this board says, well, no matter what you're doing over there in your jurisdiction, we just want water to come over here to go into the basin. And what are we doing with it? That's what I don't understand. What are we doing?
Yeah, I think this needs to be referred to staff to kind of sort out some of these issues, but we're as a board, we're not going to resolve this, but we're more of a middleman in this process, I think. And the outcome is going to be somewhere with Marina Coast responsibility, not us. And then our role in the Seaside Basin is that we have access to a resource. And is it useful to another jurisdiction or jurisdictions in a way that makes sense to them and to us? But it's got to be sorted out in a way that we're not going to sort it out here.
Well, no, it's two things. That's our job to sort it out, Chair. And I'm not saying tonight. I'm not saying it's ready for tonight. But at the end of the day, we have to weigh in and vote one way or the other. And again, to couch it as though we're just the middleman and we're just, saying, okay, send it through the pipes to send it over to the Seaside Basin. Okay, that makes sense. But we're putting the Seaside Basin for Marina Coast to do what with? And this goes to our credibility for me. If they're saying they don't have water to serve the jurisdictions on in their jurisdictions, so the land use jurisdictions in their district, then I don't see how they have water to send a pipe somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, you know, if we want to be part of this, we should be saying, well, what agreements do you have because again, I represent more than just Seaside here. So it's cities that need that confirmation that they will get surface water. CSUMB, whoever has land over there, and it's more than, you know, it's like 6 or 7 different entities, right? They need reassurances that if water is going outside the jurisdiction, how is it coming back? How are they assured that they won't be said, well, we don't have it now? And so I think that's part of what we should be doing because it goes to, again, our credibility as we talk about doing other stuff as a district, to be part of this, I would say shenanigans.
Wow.
Because again, it's, if you're saying you don't have water in your jurisdiction for projects, how are you sending it out? So you could term it however you want to term it. I just think we should be careful about how we, you know, characterize this understanding and how we go forward. I agree with the chair. It's a lot of work for staff to do. But when it comes back again, if it comes back again, my comments are the same. What commitments do we have to serve the jurisdictions that you serve? So thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you. And Karen, let's wrap this discussion up.
One more thing.
for the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah, just this is new information to me that City of Seaside and maybe other jurisdictions are having trouble getting commitments from Marina Coast Water District. So and I don't know the reasons, but it sounds like we need to have more information about the situation, what's going on, and just be aware. Just to have the picture to understand, you know, I don't know what the reasons are. Let's find out. Let's ask staff to, inform us, and you can inform us as well. What, what the City of Seaside is. Well, I guess you did in this letter, but I've only seen it tonight. Yeah. So want to understand this better.
Okay.
If I could add just a one more thing, or a couple more things, just listening to those comments. One of the things I didn't see in here is that was said, and if this is accurate, then I think we need to hear it, is that I didn't read in this report that Marina was saying they were doing this to help with our saltwater intrusion situation in the Seaside Basin. So if that's the case, that is a different, that's something to be clear about. And then also what I heard, is that, this was the first time I got to see where the actual wells were. And since it's outside the saltwater intrude parts of the basin, then there is the potential to be increasing saltwater intrusion from where you're pulling. So that would, in my mind, it would be better to wait until Marina Coast Water District, which is also the GSA, has implemented some projects, because I think we're also working on drafting projects to help with the overdraft situation and the saltwater intrusion situation. And I agree, though, that the Seaside Basin is the best storage we have. All of us should be thinking about projects for the Seaside Basin and getting more water into that basin, because it's there and it's available to us. But again, you said shenanigans, I did not, but I really don't understand why we're doing this. And I am going to say it over and over again. I don't care if it's CalAm or anyone else. When we're doing things for political reasons, it's not okay. And so if there's another reason out here that's not being expressed, but it's for another purpose, I can say tonight, I don't need another meeting. I don't want to be part of it. And I'm very clear about that.
I don't understand what you mean by
That if this is being done to prove a point somehow that Marina is flowing in water, and so there's so much water in Marina right now that you can go put it in another basin, if that's what we're asking to be part of, I'm very clear I don't want to be part of it.
I don't know. Not at all sure.
Okay, we're going to go out to the public.
Ready for public? Yeah, Tom Raleigh. I had the pleasure for about 5 years, from about the year 2000 to year 2005, to serve on a regional water task force before your time, before you were here. He was here. Anyway, we came up with a water project that would have solved everything. Unfortunately, due to hanky-panky by the county's official, the whole thing went down the tubes sometime later. But we looked at every water source in the north end of Monterey County. And every water district is running out of water. And it's my understanding that the Marina Coast Water District is pumping out of the 800-foot aquifer. Now, I understand Mr. Stoltz's reluctance to get involved, but this is something we looked at for 5 years. And we came up that there were no excess water anywhere in North Monterey County. And we haven't gotten any major sources since then. The closest thing we've got is movement for a desal plant. Okay, now we can get into political arguments on that, what's that's going to solve. But you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor, and you're right. If I was any one of you 7 officials, I would tell Marina Coast Water District, get your water in order. Because I don't believe they have any excess water. Until they prove they have excess water, you shouldn't be making any agreements to give them the right to pump elsewhere. So that's my comment. We've spent 5 years looking for a water source. And unfortunately, that got killed due to hanky-panky. But anyway, you know, they're still there and they're still over pumping. And I'd like to know where they're going to get their excess water. I mean, you have it right. They should be able to justify it. If they can't justify it, I mean, I think it's a non-starter for you guys to even consider this. Thank you.
Just to correct one point, Tom, there is a new water supply, which is reclaimed water. That is a new water supply. Granted, it was made out of, home production.
Yeah,
but still.
they were tapping 800-foot water at that time. They are now.
That's fair enough. Okay, can we move?
More public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, any other?
Yes, we have Andy Rick. Andy, when you're ready, you may address the board.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, Andy Myrick, City of Seaside. First of all, I'd like to just thank you guys for taking the time to read that letter, and based on the conversation, it sounds like you understand it. Our main point is basically just what exactly you were saying. We're trying to get enough water for the projects that we've already have in the planning process. And so from our perspective, there is no excess water to store in the Seaside Basin. They need to commit to us first. There's also a number of other more technical issues, like the fact that, as many of you pointed out, they're pumping water out of the Salinas Basin, putting it in the Seaside Basin. And so our main point is just that before they can start pumping excess water, they need to serve those that are actually within their district boundaries, which includes the City of Seaside. It doesn't include Monterey and Delray Oaks, as far as I understand. They're not within the Marina Coast Water District boundaries. So our point is, before they are eligible for water, that all of our projects that we have asked for water for should be fully allocated. And we're happy to meet with your staff to go over our point and give them some more history on this matter, because there is some history. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, back to the board. Are there any other public comments?
Chair Riley, I see no other raised hands.
Okay, back to the board, and let's move this along. But Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll try to be very brief here, about 30 good seconds. I'm not against putting water in the basin. It may be some benefit to push back against seawater intrusion. What I'm saying is, if that water goes over there, it should be accounted for. It should not go over there, and then I'm going every day saying, Marina Coast, could you give me waters for buildings and projects I already have allocated? I don't see how you take water out your bathtub, put it in the sink, and you never use none of it to wash your hands, right? That's all we're saying. We're saying you could take your water and do whatever you want with it. But if you're going to store it somewhere, how do I come back to you? When I leave here, we're going to Marina Coast and say, could you give me water for the rest of my main gate project and Campus Town? how do you have extra? We may not need it today, but how do you have extra when you're telling me you don't have enough for me today? So I'm not against, Marine Coast is not bad people, and I'm not against storing it. But if you're saying pull it out to store it, I'm saying why don't we have agreement where the land use jurisdictions, Monterey, CSUMB, Chartwell and Delray Oaks, who all need water, right? Why can't we have an agreement that says you will serve us when that need is set? Because you say you were storing it, right? Okay, we'll store it and bring it back over. But this is the point about I get to ask you guys, why send it over there without having an agreement? If you say you're going to bring it back when you need it. I think the chair.
But you're just making the point that there's a need that's already been.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, because I think it goes to Director Paul's question as well. I think, and I'm not going to speak for Marina Coast or for Seaside, but I think that the thought is Marina Coast has a sheet of numbers on a page, and it says Seaside gets X acre feet. It says Chartwell School gets X acre feet. It says Delray Oaks gets Y and Monterey gets Z. And then there's, Central Marina and other things that they have to serve. But of the FORA allocation, they're known numbers. And I think what they've said is we have enough in our known number to serve phase 1 of Campus Town, but not phase 2. But until even phase 1 is built, if they were pumping that water, it's excess water that they could bank. Until Monterey builds anything on their old FORA property, it could get banked. Same thing with Delray Oaks. So what they're saying is we have a limited allocation for the city of Seaside. And you have come to Marina Coast Water District with enough projects to use up all of that once they're built. But to the extent a Monterey hasn't come up with a project or a Delray Oaks hasn't come up with a project, until they do, there's excess water that they can't reallocate in their minds, to reallocate to Seaside. And so that whole FORA allocation thing, which is a vestige of decisions that got made 20 years ago, is saying we do have excess water, it's just not your excess water. They painted the molecules different colors, and only the pink ones get to go to Seaside and only the blue ones get to go to Monterey. And that's what's going on here, I think.
Now, I'm be quick. That's not what's going on, with respect. And now you said you weren't going to speak for Marina Coast, but you just did.
No, I have no idea what you're doing.
But that's my point. That's my point. You're saying the only water that Seaside gets is the water that was allocated 24 years ago. And we're not even close to building out. And they're telling us they don't have the water. And so all I'm saying is this board should take a look at that before we be part of that deal. That's all.
Okay, I'm going to last comment.
Yeah,
Exclamation point.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna move this, if we're not gonna go for, at least 6 months, 7 months or whatever, until they can come up with it, your comments from Seaside and from Marina Coastal, can they answer this? It used to be a rush for me, but it got down to getting an agreement out here, but it's not an agreement. We prolonged that by 30 days. Now it's, I'm saying take your time and get it right, because we're in the middle, and I'm hearing the mayor sit up there saying they got projects, and then they saying we ain't got water, but you got water to put in the Seaside Basin to protect the Seaside Basin. And I know at some point that water is going to have to come out, and where it's going to go. So, hey, you did what you're supposed to do by coming up with an agreement, and it's not there yet, and we're right in the middle.
Nope. If I had 4 of you say we don't even want to get started on an agreement, that makes my staff's life
Yeah, that's
easier.
getting close. Let's take it step by step before we go there.
But, we agreed to come to you to see if you wanted us to work on a draft agreement, not adopt a final agreement. So either way.
I think the burden is falling on Marina Coast to clarify what they have, where it comes from, how they see, moving it here to A and then back to B and then back to A, whatever their plans are and whatever their commitments are. Because I still think we're in the middleman here, that we have access to the Seaside Basin. And we're the route that Marina Coast could use to get to the basin if that's important enough for us to kind of do some protection of the basin. But if it's far more complicated than that and far more contentious than that, then, and it's only, we're only talking about maybe 400 acre feet, that's still a lot of water, but it's not enough water that's going to be noticeable in the Seaside Basin. So the relative value of what they're doing may be important on a year-to-year basis. It may not be important in the long run, unless there are agreements that can be made that Marina Coast needs to make. Because if we're just in the middle ground of, yeah, we'll open our pipes for you and then we'll close them when we have to, we're not a big player, but we're a traffic cop on one piece of it.
There you go.
Can you add, Chair, the why for when you come back? Because you are sort of put in a position, Dave, where you had to speculate and you said it could be for this reason, it could be for that reason, it could be for this reason. I don't understand. I mean, prove me wrong. Why is this something that they want to do? And that would be really helpful if this comes back.
I think at the ad hoc committee, at the water master, Marina Coast staff said they would come back to the ad hoc with a proposal in a couple of months. And I think that proposal is exactly what you just said, more detail of what they're even thinking about.
And why? Again, like why, what is the need to do this? I mean, when the desal plant is online, that makes perfect sense to me. You're producing water, water you produce, you could store somewhere. If they're not using their recycled water to the extent they thought they would be, store it.
Come down with some agreements, some understandings.
Yeah, and just as an observation, it seems to me the only written material is being produced by us and by the city of Seaside, because Marina Coast is not producing any written material to go on. It's just talk. And so until they get specific about their own plans and what they can share and what they're willing to commit to, then what the reasons are why they want to do this or can do this. I don't think we ought to pass up an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of a benefit for the basin. But if it's far more complicated and far more, if it takes a lot more work than just saying yes. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Or
So
if it's destructive to the basin.
So, okay, we're gonna close this discussion. Thank you very much for
So we want
all the contributions.
from Marina Coast.
Well, I think, yeah.
Well,
There's got to be a staff-to-staff follow-up here before.
There will be.
What we're gonna do. I know you're gonna follow up on.
and there's no big rush unless you can get it all.
So we have Rem watch this meeting first. and
Oh,
then-
yeah, but you don't have to jump right back in here 30 more days and whatever. Give yourself some time, try to work with them and whatever, and keep me out of land use.
Okay, let's go to the next item, which is even simpler than the last one.
Actually, even though you were being facetious, it is simpler. So let's walk our way through. So there's this chart, which I just wanted to include because, I've been saying we don't want to become a South San Joaquin, we want to be an Ojai. And Ojai went from resolution of necessity to conclusion in just about a year.
Wow.
Well, we're already way past that. And you have to keep in mind, a lot of these also started way before the resolution of necessity did. Felton had Felton Flow, and they were talking about public ownership quite a ways before they actually sat down and passed a resolution of necessity. South San Joaquin Irrigation District, I mentioned in the notes that they started their LAFCO process in 2004. They had a lawsuit with LAFCO over interpreting retail versus wholesale and what is a new or different service. And they had a lawsuit that settled in 2009. So they began quite a ways before they even got to their resolution of necessity. in 2016, and it's still going on. So we did our resolution of necessity in October of 2023, so we're not that far off of schedule, except we started this as a community in 2017. Actually, you could go back to 2013 if you wanted to start with Measure J.
Oh,
Or Measure O, rather, yeah, the failed one in 2014. So the distance between the resolution of necessity and the outcome is more like the legal process. You know, we had more consultants who were on our team before we made it official. And then once we made it official, they had second thoughts. So the resolution of necessity followed a few weeks later by the actual filing of the complaint. That's what constitutes the legal process. And I would say we're off schedule. We got on schedule by filing our case in December of 2023. And then we had the demurrer. Let's take a look at the next slide. So we filed. They hit us with a document request. Then they filed the demurrer in April of 2024. We did file to their request for documents. They deposed me all the way in November of 2024. So basically, that's all that happened in 1 year from the passage of the resolution of necessity was they got to a deposition. And then they dismissed that demurrer. The complaint has been proceeding. And then lo and behold, in January, the appeals court in San Bernardino, whatever district covers San Bernardino County, reverses their Superior Court decision, which granted Liberty Utilities position, which is the city could not take over their water system. And the appeals court came in and said, no, we think the standard of review was different and the Superior Court should go back and reanalyze its final decision, to which their attorneys then requested a Supreme Court review in February, and the Supreme Court agreed to take it up. Well, we'll talk in a minute about what that means and why we are on hold for that Supreme Court review. It is proceeding. We've seen their briefing. I believe we're going to participate in an amicus brief on that case in front of the Supreme Court, which I would like to see a draft of soon, but we haven't seen it yet. Next slide, please, Sarah. And so going forward, our expectation is on Wednesday of this week, we will file our motion for some summary adjudication, and CalAm files their motion for summary judgment. What CalAm will be attempting to do is, for the same reasons that they named in their demurrer, which failed, to try to have the whole thing thrown out because we've never had our powers activated by LAFCO. Same set of issues. And to the extent that motion for summary judgment does not succeed, that's where we're hearing about this proposed stay. And the stay would basically be saying, hey, let's just put this whole case on hold until the Supreme Court issues an opinion in this matter. And our attorneys have already done a kind of a list of things that should be allowed to continue, discovery for certain types of items. And I think that's our position, is we need continued discovery to be ready for the case if the case is not thrown out or summarily dismissed. So the problem we have is the Supreme Court does not move quickly. And if in fact we're going to wait, or more importantly, if our Superior Court judge wants to wait on the Supreme Court for instruction on how to conduct his bench trial, then we're going to wait until the Supreme Court issues. And that could be as late as February 2027, maybe sooner, maybe later, just we don't know. But that would be a 2-year period from when the petition was filed, which is almost a rule of thumb with the Supreme Court. So Why might our judge wait? Next slide, please. So when you passed your resolution of necessity, there were three kind of standard fare conclusions that, you know, the public interest requires these assets. That the proposed use is located in a manner that's most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. Well, the least private injury is we intend to compensate them for the sale of their assets. And in order to be under public ownership, these are the assets. They're located where they need to be for meeting that public purpose. And then are they necessary for the proposed public use? Well, yeah. The fourth is whenever a utility assets are subject to condemnation, then there's this test about, is it a more necessary public use? And they're all convoluted because these are rebuttable presumptions. And so the burden is there any evidence to the contrary that you can rebut 1 through 4? So next slide, please, Sarah. So in late 2023, related to that South San Joaquin Irrigation District process, PG&E sued the Superior Court over their standard of review and method of review. And then our Apple Valley case, which was issued in 2025 in January, that appeals court issued a kind of a different set of conclusions. So let's look at what they were. Next slide, please. So in the PG&E case, they said the trial court, so the bench trial, can be an independent finder of fact, trier of facts, and it's not merely a deferential review of what the public agency did. And by being a true trier of fact, that they would allow extrinsic evidence, other evidence that wasn't present at the time of adoption of the resolution of necessity, to be entered into the trial as evidence, including things that they came up with after the resolution of necessity. The Apple Valley Appeals Court said the trial court could not use its independent judgment, that it could only engage in a deferential review of the city's resolution of necessity and only use the facts that were available evidence at the time of the resolution of necessity. And you may recall when you did your resolution of necessity, we had, 100 and whatever it was, 99 findings with evidence behind them. And the attorney from Manat said, oh, this is surplusage, that new term of art, meaning none of it was necessary and you overreached. Well, in fact, if you could only consider evidence that was available at the time of the resolution of necessity, we clearly didn't overact. We substantiated our case. But Apple Valley seems to say you can't try the case with anything beyond a review of the legislative body's abuse of discretion, which would be a very easy test then. So I think what you have is a trial judge in our case who says, well, which standard of evidence in which form of trial am I to give in this case? I can't make that decision until the Supreme Court rules. So that's why I had hoped that we would find a way to start, and then maybe he wouldn't issue his opinion until, but I don't think he could start the trial without knowing what the standard of review is. So here we sit, waiting on the Supreme Court. I don't know, Michael, if you've got anything to add, but that sounds kind of.
That's pretty much spot on, and our experience is typically judges will wait to see what the law is before they hear all the facts and evidence, because that is the standard that they need to know. Need to understand, know.
Yeah. And we have one more slide, Sarah. And those, as I said, the standard of review needs to be determined and the scope of admissible evidence needs to be determined. So there you have it, which is very unsatisfying to our public who keeps asking, what's next? What's next?
Well,
Yes, go ahead. Al.
yeah, thank you, Chair. Can we ask the judge that question that you're trying to get out? Can y'all do a brief or whatever and ask that question? Why we have to wait on Cal-Am to do things? And I feel after a certain amount of time, it's like that first item in your attorney's report, we're waiting on them to file appeal or objection to whatever. How come we can't find one saying, no, we want this to move ahead? How could spend some money on that?
Well, that's our motion Wednesday on summary adjudication. That's basically us saying they're unfounded. Here are the facts in the case. We sold water retail. We sold potable water retail. We sold recycled water retail. We've been in this business since the 1990s. Throw out their motion to dismiss, move ahead with us. But then comes the as yet reported but unseen motion for a stay, which Cal-Am will be filing. And that's one that I would think would be on the heels of a decision on the motion for summary judgment. But that's where the discussion would have to be about, whoa, don't stay. We still need discovery. We need to be ready. This isn't going to go away. And in fact, we would like to start this trial. And that's about the time it would get shot down.
Yeah.
Well, and through the chair, that's my thoughts right there. Move ahead so everybody know that, hey, Cal-Am just shut us down.
Yeah.
But we're trying to move ahead. Why I do not understand why we're sitting up here waiting on them to make up their mind if they're going to file something. When I could file it early and get it in there, and the judge can kick it back in my face and say, no, Mr. Edwards, Director Edwards, no, we're going to do it this way. Okay, public, here it is. We have asked, why don't we move forward? This is what the judge has told me. So that's my point of, we need to start moving on this. Because it's like we're waiting on Cal-Am. Well, they're going to do it. No, they ain't going to do nothing until you do something. That's me. I'm just get fed up with it.
Sharon?
So I gather our position will be that we intend to move forward with the case, whichever standard of review the Supreme Court says applies, okay? And so we should be allowed to proceed with whatever discovery or motions advance the case that can proceed, that don't depend on the answer to the question of the standard of review. Right?
That is our current position, yes.
Yeah. I make one other comment, and this is kind of interesting, although I don't know really if it helps us. The Supreme Court, when it granted review, said that parties could still regard the Apple Valley decision as good law. You could still cite it and say this is precedent, which is interesting because that's kind of unusual thing to go out of its way to say that. I mean, normally when review is granted, lawyers say, okay, you can't rely on that case anymore until the Supreme Court decides. And so it's a good sign. I mean, it's a clue that maybe the court provisionally at least thinks that Apple Valley decision is the one that was decided correctly. But of course, we won't know that until they issue their opinion. So I think I say the reason it probably doesn't, it's a good sign, but it probably doesn't help because the trial judge is probably still not going to want to take the risk of guessing which standard is going to be the right one in the eyes of the Supreme Court.
And that's the one little piece that gave us hope, where we thought, okay, maybe he'll agree to get started because they went out of their way to say you can still use that standard of review, knowing that we'd be suckers for an immediate appeal if it didn't go the way we wanted it. But it speaks to Director Edwards' question, why can't you get started? And it all comes back to, will our judge say, no, I know what's going on here and I'm going to wait.
And that's why I'm waiting for him to say, and that way publicly we can say the judge wants to wait.
Well, and if what Sharon just said is is useful, it can be argued in the stay arguments to continue to allow discovery and other things to go forward, because you do have a potential going forward suggestion in the Supreme Court agreement to hear.
The issue and concern of allowing discovery to go forward if a stay is issued is because there's the two different standards of review and admissible evidence, then how would you limit or expand discovery to that fact? So that's what we'd be looking for guidance from the judge if they do allow that to go forward.
But
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chair, but that's why he's probably hesitant to go forward.
Exactly.
'Cause, you know, every turn, he may be on one side of the fence and, you know,
Well, it seemed to me the PG&E side of the argument is rehear the whole goddamn thing, pardon my French. At least Apple Valley says, no, these are the criteria and this is, other court cases are based on the evidence in the file and the documents and so on. That's what we're limited to. That seems consistent with what normally happens in court, not this other thing like, oh yeah, we'll just adopt this new standard, which is no standard at all. We'll just go back and then open it all up again.
Yeah, and you should know that the attorneys for Liberty Utilities in Apple Valley at the Superior Court level and the attorneys for PG&E in South San Joaquin through a later intervention are both the Manat law firm, who is Cal-Am's attorneys here. And their briefing clearly signaled favor for the South San Joaquin or the San Joaquin Superior Court PG&E case, where you have much more liberal interpretation of evidence that could be entered, and it's a true trier of fact. And so they don't want just a review of discretion, and abuse. They want a trial.
Oh, boy.
one quicker.
Yes.
What is, I may have missed it in your comment. Okay, so we're waiting, and when would we hear? Because what I want to get to is like what Director Edwards was saying earlier is how we continue to communicate with the ratepayers, in this district. And, if it's wait and see, well, then that's better than not telling them anything. So that's really what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, so the filings that are supposed to happen this Wednesday, August 20th, both ours and theirs, will have to get acted on. So there will be a period of review and, a proposed decision that will come out within probably 60, 90 days, maybe. This purported request for a stay may wait until they find out if they got dismissal. Or, if they really wanted to do everybody a favor, they file it and they say, hey, if you don't dismiss, here's our request for a stay. And that's where I think, and there are also case management conferences. We are in front of the judge. So these questions can be asked. Just the simple question of, you want to get started or you want to wait? We should be in a position to ask that.
Yeah, we could suggest to the judge or ask the judge to tell Cal-Am if it wants to file a motion to stay the whole thing, to file it by a certain date.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, yeah, we're acting on this. Thank you.
Again, it's just an ask, but still.
Yeah.
Let's make that point.
Nothing wrong with asking.
But we were truly dealt, a bad hand by, well, a good hand, because if the Apple Valley standard of review goes through, I think it's more favorable. But
Yeah.
having this one land during our process is just kind of inopportune.
This is a nice summary, Dave.
Yes,
On the purchase options
yes, it is.
or progress. Okay, well, I think we're done with the regular agenda. Is there?
This was agendized, so you may want to take it up for public comment.
Yes. We'll go to public comment.
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, Tom, your last chance for tonight. Okay, then are we ready to adjourn, guys?
That'd be awesome.
I'm being adjourned.